What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and last month, if you remember at the very beginning, we did a video that was the hand trap tier list for the new format. That was really fun. You guys seem to like it a lot. There were a couple confused comments about why some cards were lower on this list than other cards. The main thing that I'm trying to sort of show you guys in these videos is that I'm trying to predict which cards will actually be played at competitive events. Not which cards could see play, but rather which cards will see play. So when we're looking at cards that are popular choices, these are cards that I feel are going to be all over the place in a lot of different decks. Staple choices are cards that are going to be in every single list, which is very, very rare. As you can see, last time we only put Droll and Lockbird there, and then things like good but specific, you know, they're only good against certain matchups, they're only good in certain decks. Unpopular and meh are very similar. Unpopular means they're seeing a little bit of play maybe somewhere, but very unlikely to see play, and then meh is cards that basically will not be seeing play for the vast majority of players. And looking back on this list, I feel like I was mostly accurate. You know, maybe Dimension Shifter and No Material were a little bit too high, but overall I felt like I was pretty decent. I remember when I recorded the video I had Gamma and the unpopular, but while editing I put it back in the good but specific category, which I think was the right call. But in today's video I don't want to focus so much on this last list that I made last month. I want to focus on a new list. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. We're going to try to predict which hand traps will actually be played at competitive events for March 2020. Now this is going to be pretty difficult because yeah, we have a couple weeks left of the current format, and then we're going to have dual overload, which is going to change everything, and then we have a new ban list in April, but that's not going to be talked about too much in this video. So we're mostly just focusing on the next couple weeks of the same format, as well as 1 week of dual overload. The April 1st sort of discussion, or the April discussion, will happen in actual April, so don't really factor in any Master Rule 5 stuff for today's discussion. First up, Side-Frame Gear Gamma. So this card, once again, I feel will be in the good but specific category. We've seen it in some other decks, but generally speaking, when people are playing Side-Frame Gear Gamma, they're playing it in Lunalights, or another deck playing Side-Frame Lambda, which is an incredibly powerful card with Side-Frame Gear Gamma. I don't expect this card, I mean, it's been in the past, but I don't expect this card to be used as just like a generic hand trap. I've seen that happen a couple times. I even saw like an Altergeist list that played this card in the main deck, but generally speaking, it's only me playing in decks that can make Lambda and actually banish a Psychic monster to search the Gamma in the end phase. Next up, we have DD Crow. So last format, this card was very popular. It wasn't quite staple status, and I'm going to say if this upcoming format for the upcoming couple weeks, it's still going to be in that category. So we do not see DD Crow in every deck, but it is a very, very popular choice. I saw some people getting mad that I only put Droll and Lockbird in the staple status of the last sort of video that I made about this, but don't get me wrong, when a card is popular on my list, it's really, really popular. Like 70% of players are playing it, which is a huge number. I mean, that's really crazy. So even though it's not quite staple status, which would mean it's in every single deck, no matter what type of strategy it is, it's still a very, very good card, and a lot of people are going to be playing it. Skullmeister, on the other hand, basically saw no play last format. So this is a card, we're going to see a few of these, where when we moved over into February, I said, well, these cards were really good last format, but they're probably not going to be that good this format, but people might still play them sometimes just because of how impactful they were in the previous month. This time though, now that we've had a couple weeks and we realize people aren't necessarily playing cards like Skullmeister, I'm much more comfortable putting the Skullmeister in the mech category. Even though it is a good card, this format, it's not going to be that strong. Yes, this card might see play in the future, but at least for March 2020, I highly doubt Skullmeister will be at any top tables. Very similarly here, I'm going to put Artifact Lancia in the mech category as well, and this really, really pains me to do so because Artifact Lancia is a great card. It's been great in so many formats, way more formats than even Skullmeister, but it's probably not going to be played in March 2020. I just don't see that happening. This card was in the unpopular category last time, and I got a lot of comments, people saying, well, actually this card is good against Orcus, it's good against Spirals a little bit, maybe it'll see more play than you're thinking, but turns out people just don't really care about Artifact Lancia anymore. This card will probably see play in the future, even more guaranteed than Skullmeister, but at least for right now, yeah, no one's really playing Lancia, at least at the moment. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is kind of in a weird spot. It's really good against some cards that are being played right now. IP Masquerena, you got a lot of field spells like Spiral Resort and Dragonic Diagram. It's good against Appaloosa, and yet it doesn't seem to be the go-to option for a lot of players. I actually feel like one of the things that's really hurting cards like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is that people have been shying away from hand traps in favor of playing cards that break boards. Things like Mind Control and Super Poly and Dark Row Ogre no more oftentimes are now played instead of lesser hand traps like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, leaving their only hand traps these super impactful ones. So Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, while it's still a pretty good card, probably will not be very popular. I think people will still play it though, so I'll put it in the unpopular category, not the meh category, because yeah, I'm sure someone somewhere will probably top with this card in the coming weeks, just not that many players. Do I even have to talk about Spooky Dogwood? I mean, I put this card on here as like a courtesy, but realistically this card is terrible and likely will never see play ever, so I'll just put it in the meh category. I won't spend too much time talking about it because this card is just so bad. Sorry to all you players that want to play it in like Metaphys, I guess, or Roam Mages, but realistically this card is not going to see any competitive play for a long time unless something really drastic changes, but I just don't see that happening. Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion is a card that has been good in the past around the similar time that Skullmeister and Lancia were being played, but probably not going to see play in March 2020. Once again, this is a card that pains me to put it this low on the list, but I'm going to put it in the meh category because please realize now that we put 3 very powerful cards in the meh category that this video is only my predictions for March 2020. These cards are not necessarily terrible, they're not necessarily bad. In many cases, besides the Spooky Dogwood, they're actually pretty darn good. But for March 2020, I just don't see them being played, so that's why they're so low on the list, despite in theory being good cards in the past and maybe even in the future. No Material is also in a weird spot. When the format first started back in February, a lot of people actually were thinking this card would be really strong. You know, maybe not good against every matchup, but still pretty decent. We saw it being played in and against decks like Spirals, but as time went on, the card got less and less popular to where it's at right now, which is basically not played anywhere. Once again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I know it looks like we're putting a lot of cards in the meh category because we are, but this is a card that has been good in the past, but likely will not see play in the upcoming weeks. Effect Veiler, on the other hand, actually might end up being pretty decent near the end of March 2020. We don't really know what's going to happen quite yet, but Union Carrier and Needle Fiber are both pretty bad against Effect Veiler. You know, hitting an Effect Veiler on one of those cards is really big in some matchups, so even though this card will probably not see that much play at the start of March or the first couple weeks, I actually predict that Effect Veiler might come back into a more specific category, not super popular, but still a more specific card against those decks that are playing Needle Fiber, that are playing Union Carrier in the future. For that reason, I will put it in the good but specific category. I believe this went up from the last prediction, where it was an unpopular choice, which did come true, but I think at the end of March, this card might actually see some success. Dimension Shifter is likely not going to be good. I also just realized that I forgot to put a hand trap on here, so I'm going to have to put that in at the end, but Dimension Shifter probably will not be played. There is another card, though, that we'll talk about at the very end, because it's not in the actual tier maker. I forgot to put it in here. That will be played instead of Dimension Shifter in a lot of matchups. Nibiru, on the other hand, is looking really good in March 2020. I'm going to put this card, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this card is going to be a staple choice in the upcoming weeks. So at the start of last month, this card was not really that good. I mean, it was popular, but it wasn't really that great because everyone was just playing Spiral. That was like the #1 deck out of the gates, and this card isn't that good against Spiral. However, it is good against every other combo deck in the format, and it's okay enough against Spiral, not to mention Shadalls like it a lot because it's a hand trap that's a light, which is really good. And I think that once Needle Fiber comes out, this card will get even better. So I think Nibiru might actually be a staple choice for March 2020. Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, on the other hand, you know, not very good. I don't want to spend too much time talking about cards that are just pretty much unplayable. We might see this card again sometime, but the fact of the matter is that the best matchup that it would be against would be Spiral, but they don't even really need the double helix that much. If you Reaper them, they're still going to end on like the Sleeper and an Appaloosa in most cases. It's not that important to actually get the double helix on the board, so Reaper probably will not be played in the upcoming month. Drone Lockbird is still very powerful and very popular, but I do not feel this card is staple status anymore. A bunch of different factors are leading me to say this, but the main one is that ever since Invoke Shadalls entered the format, it seems like Drone Lockbird's popularity has gone down quite a bit. It is still really powerful and really popular, but it's not quite in every single deck list as we used to see before Shadalls came out. Drone Lockbird is likely going to be really good in the upcoming format. I'm not quite confident enough to put it in the staple status just because I think some other options are going to be better, namely Nibiru, but it still will be very popular and played in a variety of decks against a variety of matchups. I feel like the main discussion point here is that Spirals have gone a little bit down in popularity. You have other combo combo decks in the format, and Droll Lockbird is really the best against spirals. So I'm going to put it in the popular category. Still very, very strong, don't get me wrong here, but not quite staple status like it was last month. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring actually had a huge sort of upsurge in popularity over the last couple weeks. I put it in the popular category in February, but it wasn't quite there at the beginning of the month. But at least now, like right now, this card is actually really, really popular in a lot of different decks. So I'm going to put it in that popular category, as you would expect. And as weird as it sounds, Infinite Impermanence actually has gone down in popularity. Like, we don't see this card in too many decks besides trap-based strategies. You see it in Altergeist, you see it in Guru, you see it in Paleo, you see it in some other decks, but generally speaking, you're not going to find Impermanence in like a Dinosaur deck list or a Shaddoll deck list or a Spiral deck list. So I'm going to put it, weirdly enough, in the good but specific category, which feels very strange to me because the card has been so good for so long. Pretty much ever since this card has been released, it's been a staple card or a popular card, but right now it just doesn't seem to be quite there, at least not in the way that it was in the past. Like Effect Filler though, it might actually go up in popularity back to the popular category if Needle Fiber is that big of deal. Right now though, at least for the first couple weeks and even at the end of the month, I'm going to put it in the good but specific category. You're not going to be playing this card unless you're playing a trap based deck, unless Needle Fiber is like everywhere, and then maybe we can talk about in April if the card is suddenly really, really popular once again. And then we have the big hand trap that is selling dual Overload, Fantastical Dragon Phantasmate. It's not like mind-blowing, it's not fantastic, which is ironic, but it is still a decent card, and a lot more people are going to be playing it now that it's gotten a reprint, which is really, really big. I'm going to put it in that good but specific category. You probably won't play it in every deck, but you will play it in enough decks where we'll see play, at least on the competitive level. Lastly, the card that I forgot to add to this list because it was just like completely off my radar the last time I talked about this hand trap tier list is Retaliating Sea. So this card is insanely powerful, but only in Shaddolls against the mirror match. For that reason, I will put it in the good but specific category. If you are playing Invoke Shaddolls, you need to have at least 2, but probably 3 copies of this card in your side deck. It is just a complete blowout going first or second in the mirror match, but it's only pretty much played in Shaddolls, so that's why it's only in that good but specific category. Anyway though, hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion video on my predictions for March 2020 and which hand traps will actually see competitive use. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with any of my opinions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.